What it do, guys? It's D'Anthony here, man, aka Hood Scout, back again for another edition of the Hood Scout podcast. And this is really a unique podcast, a podcast like no other. We're going to have athletes, we're going to have coaches, we're going to have intellectuals, we're going to have media members of all sorts. And don't forget, guys, to like this podcast, share this podcast, and help grow this podcast. This is not just my podcast. This is also your podcast. And the only reason it's going to grow is because you guys are going to be invested in it, guys. Sit back, get your beverage of choice ready, get your popcorn ready, get your dinner ready, get your steak ready, get your vegan meal ready. Tune in, guys. Hood Scout. Peace.
People to really know who we are and to start giving us credit. You know, I know that's earned. We've come out, we've played some really good football teams. They had a high-powered offense. They've been averaging 400 or 500 yards a game. And to come out under the circumstances, having three defensive starters having to sit out the first half, having guys step up, and it being an 8-9 ball game at halftime was unbelievable. So I'm proud of our group. We're here. We're not going anywhere.
Hey, what it do, world? Welcome back to another edition of the Hood Scout podcast. Today I got a guest that's been on with me again, but a lot done changed since we first did our episode. So without further ado, Coach, tell the people who you are and where you from.
My name is Coach Ray Gates, and I am now currently the new head football coach at North Crowley High School.
So, Coach, man, we can start so many different areas. I kind of want to start this thing from the beginning, not all the way from the beginning, but at your last year at Cedar Hill, did you know that a job opportunity was going to come from you? Kind of speak to that, and then we'll lead into where you are now.
Yeah, well, I knew my opportunity was on its way. When I was special teams coordinator there the year prior, I was really close to getting a head job. I had interviewed. Was a finalist for the Richardson Berkner job. Of course, my man, Coach Bryant, ended up getting that job as his alma mater high school. He's doing a heck of a job out there. It was a great hire. And, you know, talking to the athletic director at the time, you know, Leslie, after the hire was made, you know, she called me and she basically told me that I did a great job in the interview. There was nothing that I actually did wrong or anything that I really could have done better. They felt like at the time, in which I didn't know it was Trey, she didn't reveal the name. She just said that the guy that we have is a better fit, you know, right now. And, you know, she used the word fit and she stressed that word. And in the moment of hearing that you didn't get the opportunity that you wanted or, you know, have a chance to get, you know, your first head job or whatever that is, and you're hearing no, you know, it kind of slams you hard in the gut. But I just stayed faithful and just kept grinding. And so whenever, you know, that conversation ended, you know, probably about 5 minutes later, you know, I found out who it was. And so I was extremely happy for Trey. So just going through that process, you know, just working and just continuing to stay faithful in what we were doing at Cedar Hill. After my last year there as the defensive coordinator, you know, several opportunities came around, and this one ended up being the right fit for me.
Let me ask you this, Coach, and this is something I was thinking about. I don't know if anything really prepares you, but what do you think you were doing to prepare you to be a head coach, or do you think you even could prepare? What I mean by that is, whether it's going to the coaching clinics, whether it's, you know, being around the City Hill program, what do you think accumulated? What allowed you to get ready for this opportunity?
Well, I think with any opportunity, if you have any dreams and aspirations of reaching, you know, the top position in whatever, you know, professional career that you're in, every step of that ladder has a purpose. And I believe that you have to master that purpose or that level that you're on, whether it's the lowest level, you know, if it's mid-tier management and you're trying to move up to upper management, you need to be able to understand that organization, how it works, how it moves from the very, you know, bare level. And for me as an assistant coach, you know, when I was an assistant coach, my job was to make sure that number one, I was the head coach of my position, that I treated my position as if, it was the most important, aspect of the program. And so I ran it with the mindset that I am the head coach of the defensive line. Then I got my opportunity, of course, at an early age. I was 31 years old when I had my first defensive coordinating opportunity. And so I had an opportunity to do that. And again, now you're responsible not for just, your kids that you coach, but you're responsible for the men on your side of the ball and the preparation that comes along with being a defensive coordinator. And so, you want to, attack that side of the ball as if, I'm the head coach of the defense, and so whenever I got my opportunity at Cedar Hill, the name carries a lot of weight. And there's a lot of pressure and expectation that goes along with that. And so I wanted to make sure that I could do whatever I could to make Coach Lynn's job, our head coach, jobs easy, that he didn't have to worry about us. So it was just a way about, how you do your business, how you go about your business, and preparing as if you're already what you say you want to be.
Mm-hmm. Coach, let me ask you this, and not necessarily a controversial way, but when you're that assistant coach, that defensive coordinator, you're at a powerhouse, but do you ever have a mindset of, when I become a coach, I'm gonna do things a little bit different, or is that just part of it because you're always gonna put your spin on it because you're a different person, even though you came up under a system or a coach or whatever? Is it always something to where it's like, I'm gonna do this a little bit different? Because I remember, I think Coach Mims, who's out west, of course, he was saying that, now that he's a head coach, when he first got hired, he was trying to be similar to Coach Samples. He said, I figured out I can't be like Samples. Is it one of those things where you got to put your own blueprint on, or do you take a little bit from where you learn? Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely, man. I think, when you're a coordinator, when you're an assistant coach, when you're underneath the program and it's not totally, the vision that you've casted, your job, and I tell my assistant coaches this, your job is to make sure that whatever vision your coordinators have, that you make it come to life. You do everything in your power to make that coordinator's, vision come to life. In order to share, in order to have your own dream, you have to share in someone else's dream. And so when you're an assistant coach, and your coach lays out essentially for the program the direction that you're going to move in, the type of culture that you're going to create, everybody's on board. But you do have these moments when, you say, man, that's a pretty good idea. I would love to do it this way. You have those conversations, in team meetings when there are things that you can discuss, and you're trying to figure out how you're going to do things. People have their input. Of course, a decision has to be made, and maybe sometimes your input isn't taken, but it doesn't mean it's not, or it doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. It just means it's not the right idea for maybe this time and purpose. And you catalog those things, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then whenever you get your opportunity, then you know how to move whenever you have your chance.
7 minutes in, talking to Coach Ray Gates, Hood Scout Podcast. So, Coach, let's walk into this job now, man. Talk to me about the interview process. Talk to me about, the call, and talk to me about getting that job ultimately.
Well, in this profession, man, the more and more you're around, high school football, you realize it's about networking. And you mentioned, going to clinics and, studying the game. That's one part of it, but it's always about building your network of people around you, getting to know those people, staying in contact with those people, because you have to have a team, around you when you're looking for these opportunities in head coaching football, in the state of Texas. So, I when the North Crowley job came open, a lot of people know that I was essentially offered the job at Dallas Skyline. I was, in the process of making that move. Things didn't meet up, for us. And so this opportunity presented itself. And so when it did, I had several conversations with people that are close to me. They knew the right people to contact to help me get in the door. And once I got in the door, it was up to me to make sure that I could run away with the opportunity that was presented to me. So, I tell young coaches all the time, if you have those goals and aspirations to be a head coach, who do you know? And then not only who do you know, you have to be selective in the people that you attach yourself to. So for me, being at Cedar Hill and being with Coach Lynn also meant that I had access to his contacts, and he can vouch for my character. You want someone that could stand on a rock and vouch for your character. And so there are a lot of guys in our profession. Coach Gilbert is one of those guys for me, Coach Chris, Coach Lynn, Coach Kendall Miller. For me, they're like on speed dial. And I got to talk to them. Coach Allen Wilson, he's been tremendous for me because he was the interim at North Crowley and he kind of works in our district. So I get an opportunity to have these guys in my pocket, ask questions, ask for their guidance, and they've done a great job of helping me get to where I am today.
So you got that job. Oh man, it seemed like it was so long ago, Coach, because y'all got out to such a great start, man. When you got there, what was you thinking? Y'all got that beautiful stadium y'all just opened. What was your mindset when you got the thing, Coach? I mean, I'm pretty sure you was overwhelmed, but did you get in there running? Talk to me about how did you hire your coaches? Walk me through a little bit of that process.
Man, when you get that job, everybody wants to sit in that seat, but you don't realize the responsibility and the magnitude of how it changes your life, because you go from being a part of the vision, you go from making suggestions as an assistant coach and a coordinator to being the one that makes the decisions. And it's totally different because at the end of the day, you have to weigh every decision that you make. And for me, I always come back to any decision that I make. I always come back to this one, area. It's my lighthouse. And I always press it up against, is it what's best for our kids? And I always try to keep them in the forefront of my mind if it's what's best for our kids. And I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a resource that it costs money. I don't care if it costs time. Whatever it is, if we feel like it's the best thing for our kids, then we're going to move in that direction. And so when I got the job, man, everybody says this old cliche of, you're going to be drinking out of a fire hose for a very long time. And it was true, so much coming at you. How do you digest it? It's the ultimate trial by fire. You'll only know until you sit in the seat and have to make those decisions. So it was a lot to take in, but in the same moment, you're elated, you're on top of the world. You finally got an opportunity that somebody said yes to you and believed, in you to hire you to run a program. So I was excited about that.
So how did you go about that hiring process, Coach, as far as hiring your coaches? That's something I'm very interested in because I think one of your coaches you got out, I feel like Florida, but I could be mistaken. How did you go about hiring your coaches? Because to me that's something interesting because I'm like that nerd. I like to know how things work. How did you go about choosing that staff? Because we all know that's pretty important.
Man, the most important hires are going to be your coordinators. Everybody else underneath that, you want really good, workers and people that, are good on the team. But for me, I knew my most important hire was going to be my offensive coordinator. I wanted to hire someone that could run a scheme, run a system, and that I didn't have to worry about being a defensive guy, being a special teams coordinator. I could let my focus be more so in those areas. And so for me, I knew that was the most important one. So I hired, a guy by the name of Eli Reinhardt. He was referred to me actually by a guy that I interviewed. His name is Vernon Hughes. Dude is killing it. He's the next one that's probably going to get a head job. He's down in Pflugerville in the Austin area. And he was the one who told me, hey, I got another guy, Eli Reinhardt. You might want to holler at this cat. And so picked up the phone. I called him, and he came in. And as a defensive guy, when you hire or you're interviewing offensive guys, I'm looking at it from a defensive, standpoint. So he gave me his presentation on his offense. It's very similar in the line to what I wanted to run. And then I'm putting him in scenarios like, all right, if I do this, what are you going to do? And everything I was asking him, he had an answer for, and I loved it. So this guy, man, I can't speak enough about him. He's coached 10 years in college. He's 30 years old. He's an Asian guy. He's been an offensive coordinator, in college. So, like, he's the real deal, and so I don't have to worry about that side of the ball. Defensively, Coach Damon Page, he coached with me at Cedar Hill for 3 years, and then he moved to Florida. His family lives in Florida. He was there for a couple years, and then he went to back to Louisiana. That's his home state. And so I picked up the phone and I called him, and he was head over heels for the opportunity. He knew the City Hill way, and so that made it important for me. And so those two hires have helped solidify this vision. On my defensive side of the ball, I think I got 4 guys that have Cedar Hill ties. And so they understand, how I want to run a program, what our program should look like with our spin for North Crowley.
So, Coach, when you well, I'm gonna ask this question second. What was the one thing you were looking for in those hires? I mean, you say you hired the offensive guy, kind of got that college experience. What was that one thing you were looking for? Was it familiarity? Was it scheme? If you can name it down to one thing, what was that main thing you were looking for?
And I want someone that has energy and passion and a love for kids. That's it. If you got energy and passion, for me, that's important. We always talk about juice. We're gonna have juice. The people there at North Crowley now, our fans, the community, they had an opportunity to see how we operate. You come to practice, you can't tell the difference between practice and game because coaches have juice. We have energy, and I think that's a must that you have to have. And then you got to have that love for the kids, because to me, if you don't have that, then there isn't going to be, that connect. The relationship aspect becomes with the love that you have for your kids. It's not X's and O's. It's not scheme. All those things are important. I have coordinators that can teach my guys scheme, and so if you could check those boxes, then we'll get you, taught up on what you need to do to be a really good coach and to teach what we need taught based on our schemes.
16 minutes in the Hood Scout podcast, talking to Coach Gates. Really, really good conversation already, man. I'm really loving this. So, Coach, when you get there, let me stop and say this for the people who don't know. Coach Gates fired up his guys, man, and see they're talking about energy and juice, Coach. I would consider you the juice man when you was at City Hill, man. You really brought a lot of juice, and it's kind of crazy because when you come to a game from the outside, you see that. You're like, man, this coach fired up. Like, this is it. So it's contagious. It is contagious. When you got to that job, Coach, did you get there was it the spring or the summer?
I got there in the spring. So my first day was March the 3rd. My official date was March 10th.
What were some ways you wanted to implement your culture? Because I definitely know you have input on the culture. It could be toughness, it could be, but what ways did you immediately try to put your imprint on that culture, or to change the culture, maybe?
Yeah, a lot of people always ask that question. I never talk about. I never say that we're going to come in and we're going to change the culture. What I say is we're going to establish our culture. When you start off by saying I'm going to change something, then you're saying that something is wrong. And Courtney and I are really good friends. I believe that his way of doing things worked. And there are things within the philosophies of coaches that are more important to one, less important to the other. So it's not really a wrong or right way. We want to make sure that we established our culture. And so when we came in with our kids, that was probably, we always just started, from that one perspective of, all right, here is the foundation of our program. G6-9 is what we start with. Galatians 6:9, do not become weary in doing good, for you will reap a harvest if you faint not. And so we just stress to our kids, number one, that in this program, we're going to do the right thing. That's most important. I don't worry about football because I know you guys love football. If we can get you guys to understand that it's the things that are off the field that matter the most, the things that, require a little bit more discipline for you because maybe you don't like to do those things, then football will take care of itself. So we started from that foundational, standpoint of building our program. You have to have a foundation That's what we're going to hang our hat on, is doing the right things. We call them the vital things. And then we started with our core values of our program. And from there, everything just kind of took off, because, again, it's about the relationships that you build, and it's about how you do it. And so the passion and the energy was there. We tried to make it fun. We tried to make it different. You know, if you see us on social media, even back then before the season, I had a videographer. Hell, I was doing half of it, you know, when I first got there. You know, if, you know, social media, we were trying to put as much stuff on social media as possible. And we just wanted the kids, we wanted to make it fun, you know, as much as we possibly could. And I thought, you know, that basically, you know, took over. And so we kind of coined the term Goon City, you know, over at North Crowley. And that has become a mindset. You know, everybody in our community now is Goon City in that area. They know what it is, and they know what type of brand of football we're playing now.
Coach, let me ask you this. Is there, and it's kind of a tough question, is there one thing that you do different that y'all might not have did at Cedar Hill?
Man, so I was talking to Joey McGuire after their win last week. He had texted me. He texted me actually twice this past week. One of the kids that I coached, I have 4 kids right now at Texas Tech that I coached at Cedar Hill, and one in particular that I personally coach as a position coach. He just said, "Man, you did such a great job with him. He's going to be a baller." You know, and so, you know, I just talked to him about the Cedar Hill way. I said, if you come and you look at our program is Cedar Hill West from the culture standpoint. What they spend to fit North Crowley. Everything that we do at North Crowley is a lot of the things that we did at Cedar Hill. And for me, that changed everything, because prior to Cedar Hill, I had been at 4 different schools. Cedar Hill, I want to say, no, Cedar Hill was my 4th school. I had been at 3 different schools. And on paper, at those 3 previous schools, for the most part, we all said that we had a culture, we had a way of doing things. And it wasn't really until I got to Cedar Hill that I saw like culture on steroids. And it changed a lot for me about the process of building culture. And I believe that, you know, I always personify culture. I feel like culture is a living, breathing organism. I believe culture walks. I believe culture speaks. And I believe the more that you feed your culture, the bigger it becomes. And so for us, we always talk about the things that are developing our culture, whether it's G69, whether it is our core values, whether it is our standard of behavior, which is be above average. We're always talking up to our kids about, you know, doing well in class, be above average, don't make C's to kill your transcripts, and also be above average in your behavior. So we're always talking about those characteristics that yield the results that we want in our program, and our kids are starting to believe in it. And this is when you know that you're starting to get where you want to go as far as your culture. Just listen to your kids. If you start hearing them talk about the things that you're preaching, our kids, you know, will be on the sideline. If a kid is complaining, you know, you'll have a kid say, hey, no BCD, which for us means no blaming, no complaining, no defending. You know, when you hear what kids say, you know, Panther speed. You know, when you hear kids say, take them to the deep, 4 quarter, 3s up, all the things that we bring in our program, then you know your culture is going in the right direction.
22 minutes in. Now, you just made my mind go somewhere, Coach. You talk about Coach McGuire. Now, how long you been knowing Coach McGuire, Coach?
I've been knowing Coach McGuire probably for the last 5 years. What's interesting is the year that I got to Cedar Hill, Coach McGuire's last year there, him and I almost linked up together just through, you know, a guy that I work with knew McGuire. McGuire was looking for a D-line guy. You know, I talked to him. The only thing that stopped me from going to Cedar Hill that year was that the teaching fields didn't line up, and he had no flexibility in the teaching field. So I almost ended up there the year prior, and then the door opened up a year later with Coach Lynn, and who I didn't know at the time. So it was one of those deals that I knew when I stepped into that place, that's where I was supposed to be. And
the reason I brought him up is, now, of course, he's at Texas Tech. And he's a big culture guy. Everybody knows that. He's big on culture. He's big on passion, energy, stuff like that. Just came off a big win against Texas. And a lot of people say, "Oh man, he rubbed me the wrong way," but that they don't know that's who he is. He's gonna talk, he's gonna have fun. That's who he is. There's nothing back wrong with that. But I want to say, in your opinion, how did he build that City Hill program, Coach? Because he won three state championships. I know you talked to him here and there or whatnot. In your opinion, how did he build that thing, according to you? Or do you have kind of a viewpoint on that?
Yeah, well, he was there and Coach Lynn, they were there together. So Coach Lynn and Coach McGuire are about as close as, you could be for not being family. Like they're really, really close. And so at the time, Coach Robert Woods was the head coach, at Cedar Hill. Coach Wood had won state championship, I believe, at Plano. And just there at Cedar Hill, he was a huge disciplinarian. And you always talk about, I kind of mentioned the word fit, him coming to Cedar Hill, probably wasn't the best fit for the kids that they had. Just because him being such a huge disciplinarian, I remember, just talking to Coach Lynn, Coach McGuire, he was so straight-laced and so tight as far as how he ran the program. For those kids, they didn't have a lot of fun. Cedar Hill had always had those type of kids, but they weren't winning. And so Coach Lynn and Coach McGuire basically, would have these, again, conversations as position coaches of like what you would do differently. How could we, if we had the opportunity, turn this thing around? And one of the things that they came around with is that we got to, let our kids be our kids and let them have fun. And so when Joey got the job, the first thing that they did was figure out what do we need to do in establishing this culture. So I think they went down to Smithson Valley, I want to say the second year. So the first year they got the job, I don't think they made the playoffs. The second year, they went down to Smithson Valley, met with Smithson Valley. Again, this is all part of culture. And they saw something that they felt would work at Cedar Hill. And so boot camp was brought to Cedar Hill. And if you know anybody, at Cedar Hill, or I've been to Cedar Hill in boot camp, like boot camp is huge. So they brought that back, and that was the one thing that they credited to changing the culture, because it created a discipline in that team. And the next year they went on and went to win the state championship. And so out of all of that, the word TTHL was coined actually by Coach Lynn, at Cedar Hill. And so that turned into something as well. And so you have to be creative and inventive and, cutting edge to change a program around. And they knew what the specific heartbeat of Cedar Hill was, and they knew what they needed to inject into it to get it going in the right direction.
Let me ask you this, Coach. Is it the norm to go around, let's say, the different colleges? I know coaches network and everything, but different colleges, or to kind of see if you can pick up a nugget here to bring to your program? Is that pretty much the norm?
It is. I love football season. Like this for me, when I first, you mentioned like when you got the job, how was it? I felt like I was a fish out of water, because during that time, I had to learn to swim in a different environment. During football season, I'm a fish in water. This is why I don't care what it is. I know how to navigate this because I've done this for so long. And so when you first get the job, everything is a first. And even now, this was our first bye week as a staff. I hired 15 guys. And so this was a first bye week for us. Next week will be our first, week 7 of the season or whatever it is. And so you're learning a lot, in your first opportunity. But when you go to these clinics, I love going to clinics because I, number one, get to network, I get to meet people. And then I'm not looking for, 20 different things. I'm looking for 1 to 2 things that I felt like we missed out on in the season that we could bring, and help change. Because if you have a good foundation, you're not looking to to uproot the foundation. You're looking for areas where there may be cracks over time, and how you can fill those cracks in and how you can support that. And that's what we do whenever we go to, clinics, whether that's a culture piece, you hear something about culture, or whether that's X's and O's and scheme.
So, Coach, we see some of the good teams in the area. Your South Lake's been consistent, Duncanville, City Hills for a long time been pretty consistent. From the outside looking in on maybe some of those programs you don't know, what have you seen that allow some of those programs to maintain a level of consistency in being good? Is it just talent? Is it something else? And then speak to me on well, you might not know this because you haven't been a coach a long time, head coach, but how does one not get stale in it? How does one keep kind of like Saban? That's one of the fascinating with Saban. It's like, man, he's won, but he's still kind of going rather than just plateauing. How do you continue to climb and not get stale?
Well, let me answer your first question. And those programs that you mentioned are household names. And being household names, man, everything has to do with timing. It's being at the right place at the right time with the right resources. You can miss the timing window of something that could possibly be great because maybe you weren't patient enough, maybe because the opportunity somewhere else presents itself, and then I look at it like cultivating a seed, right? If you plant a seed, the seed doesn't just spring up overnight. Sometimes seeds have multiple caretakers. I might plant the seed, I may leave, you may come in, you may water the seed, someone else may come in and they may actually get an opportunity to see the seed sprout. And then someone may have this opportunity to reap the benefits of the fruit that the seed was to produce, right? And so it's just being at the right place at the right time. Now, with all those programs, there's consistency, not only in the longevity of the guys that sit in that seat as head coaches, there's also consistency in the culture, the tradition. Tradition is a huge piece. If you don't have tradition, you have to create it. And that's what we're, in the process of doing. Our tradition at North Crowley. We won a state championship in 2003. 2005 was the last time that we were 3-0. We've won, we were 5-0. The last time we were 5-0 was that 2005 season. We've never been 6-0. We won one district championship. We're ranked down in the top 25. We've never been ranked in the top 25 in 6A. So you have to also know the history of the place that you're at to make sure that you can cast those visions to make the program go where you want to go. So I think, all of those things are consistent when you look at those programs. And then you got to have players. Let's not, you got to have players. And, a lot of times people will look at your Duncanvilles, they'll look at your, the Sotos, they'll look at your Cedar Hills, your SOC, the teams that are traditionally good, especially in our sector. And the first thing they want to do is discredit that the coaches are coaching. It's not just talent, that you're winning because you got talent. We never say that about South Lake. We never say that about Lake Travis. We never say that about Austin Westlake. But when you look at their rosters, they're signing as many D1 kids as we're signing at our schools. But they often get the credit of being better coaches than we do just because their kids are predominantly Caucasian, which those kids, when you turn on the film, you're going, he's a baller. Like, he can play. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I just always want to, make sure that we stress that, because that's important. You have to have the coaching piece. So, and then the second part of that question, tell me what that was again.
Hold on, Coach, because you made me go another direction. So we'll put that on pause. Now, man, we get the floor. We'll put that on pause because I want to go somewhere else. So, Coach, I was talking to Coach Tyle, head coach at South Oak Cliff, and he said something very fascinating, Coach. He was saying how now it's a little bit different because they're more so inner city, so they might not have a resource like an Austin Westlake or Highland Park, so on and so forth. But he was saying, if we had, I don't know exactly how he said it because it was a while back, but he was saying like if we had the people in our program that we knew at the high school since they was in 5th, 6th grade, where they can learn our system, so on and so forth. By the time they get here, we will be on another level. He was saying similar to an Austin Westlake. That was his point. Like, talk a little bit about that from a middle school, high school perspective. Does those schools we just named, and I'm almost for certain it does. Is that a connection there? The Sotos, the South Lakes, where they have that middle school kind of feeder where it's like the kids been in that program so long, when they get to that high school, it kind of takes them to another level. And I'm kind of phrasing it a different way, but I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I got what you're saying. You know, we call it vertical alignment.
Okay.
And so the programs that do it right have that vertical alignment. When you come in as a sixth grader, you should have, say this, programs that do it right have a 7-year athletic program. When you come in as a sixth grader, it's pre-athletics. So you get the kids, they're in pre-athletics. You should have middle school coaches that can identify guys that should be in football as a seventh grader, right? When they come in as a seventh grader, you know, now you're beginning the foundation of your program. What's it come? We're talking about planting seeds, right? You know,
yep.
So you're starting those seedlings in sixth grade. And so when you get them in seventh grade, you're just, teaching them the basic fundamentals of your scheme. So as a high school coach, I should be able to come down to my middle school and see, them running our scheme, whether it's, a formation, calling the same thing that we call it, defensively being able to line up to a base, just a base formation, the way that we line up. And then, you're starting to build on top of that in the middle school. It's really, really watered down, but the kids have an idea and an understanding of what we call our plays and how we run our plays from a base perspective. And so the ones that do it well, I had a buddy that was at South Lake that I coached with, in Austin. I know Riley pretty good, and I've talked to them. They started talking, about identifying a guy for their offense that really kind of makes their offense go, which is a wide position, a tight end position. So in the middle school, they're looking for their most athletic kid, their biggest, most athletic kid, and then they're going to play him in the middle schools at tight end. And then when it gets to high school and he's a freshman in high school, they want to make sure that he can play wide out. And so now they can move that kid from, the tight end position to an H-back position to a wide out without having to change personnel. That's what their offense is. But you're identifying that kid when he's in sixth grade, seventh grade, and he's doing, the things that's going to make him be successful in high school. Whereas a lot of schools, you come in the middle school, those kids are running, you might have 3 feeder schools that feed into your one school, and all 3 of them are running different offenses and different defenses. And then when you get them as a freshman, now you're teaching them, all right, this is what we do when the South Lakes, the Lake Travises, and the West Lakes are doing it, in 6th and 7th grade.
That's a very powerful point. Man, that's a good point. And I'm surprised that he said at tight end. You know what I'm saying? Because it seemed like the best player, for whatever reason, I guess you said from tight end so he can go to receiver, but it seemed like a lot of times the best player outside of maybe quarterback, wide receiver is going to be on defense. That's a very interesting little intel, Coach. Wow, I love that little nugget. So, pivot back to the other question. So I was saying, how do you, and like I said, this is your first head coach, so it's first head coaching job, so it's kind of tough. But how do you maintain that level of not consistency? I guess in a way it is consistent without getting stale. I use Saban as an example. Been winning really everywhere he been. And there's a few high school head coaches, KD, North Shore being really consistent, Duncanville really. It's been a few that's just been consistent. How do you get that level without plateauing, without getting tired, without getting stale?
I think you also have to be flexible in who you are, and you have to evolve. Coaches that are not afraid of change are the ones that outlast most of us in this profession. When you think that you get to a point to where you have it all figured out, that your scheme is the best scheme, and that you don't have to figure out ways to tweak. When 1 year you have a really great group and everything works your way, and you graduate all those kids, and then you're playing guys that understand your scheme, but they have varsity inexperience, and things aren't starting off the way that you had hoped for it to be, like, how can you make it easier for those kids? You have to find ways to be flexible in your schemes to support the type of talent that you have from year to year. And then, shoot, man, I lie to myself. I don't ever let myself get to the point to where I feel like we're doing it, on a level that nobody else is doing, or that we've arrived. We're 5-0, and when we were 3-0, I was telling my coaches, this is the point in time that we grind the heck out of our kids. Don't let them slip on anything. I told them on a Sunday, I said, listen, I'm going to come to practice tomorrow, and I'm just going to blow up, and I'm going to go off. It ain't going to be anything that y'all did or I'm just going to make up something, and I'm going to go off, because I don't want our kids to go, well, we're 3-0, we're 4-0, we're 5-0, and we can just coast now. We got it figured out. Nah, coach is getting mad over that. We didn't have our knee pads on. Coach went off because we didn't have our knee pads on today. Like, he tripping. Yeah, I'm tripping. Because we want them to get complacent. And that complacency, if we have it as coaches, it rubs off on our kids. And so it's amazing to me. I always felt like the demeanor of your team takes on after your head coach in this person.
Always. Yep.
And that's why I always lead with energy and juice. So when you come and watch us on the sidelines, it's energy and juice. We had we're bye week this week. We played. We moved up our freshman game, and so we played Crowley this week at our new stadium, and our B&A teams won. But the officials on the sideline, he came up to me and was like, man, coach, this is a freshman game, and you're out here coaching your butt off at a freshman game, coach. Your energy, coach. You're coaching the coaches. Yes, because it all matters. These kids, this is Friday night for them. And so if we got enough energy for our varsity kids, we better make sure that we have the same type of energy for those freshman kids to keep them excited to want to play for us as well. So I think when you look at guys like Saban, I think he lies to himself all the time. I don't think he ever lets himself feel like, they've got it, made it, figured out. And he breaks the game down. He breaks the game down to digestible parts. And what I mean by that, I was watching a documentary, I actually showed it to our kids this year on Saban. Their approach is called the process. The process of how they approach the game is they break it down to every play. And he says that every single play has a life of its own. And in his kid's mind, that one play, that one life is important. Like, once it's gone, you never get it back. It's precious. Like, how are we going to attack this one play and this one opportunity in this one moment? And so just breaking the game down to a level where the kids understand it lets you know that every play is important, not the scoreboard. They're up 40-14 in a game. It's the fourth quarter, and that play that they said that he's told his team has a life of his own. A kid messes up, he's on their butt, jumping their butt. It's a teachable moment. When a lot of people will say it's okay, you're up 42-14. No, it's not about the score. It's about the process. And so I think that keeps him from growing stale or thinking that he has figured out.
And I think you made a very powerful point, Coach, about, and I say this a lot, about teams taking on that head coach's kind of persona, personality. Because when I look at your team, I haven't been out there yet. Y'all a little bit out there. I want to get out there soon, though. But I noticed from afar, it's amazing what you can see from afar. I said, man, they remind me of Coach Gates. I mean, they're kind of serious. They have inner confidence. But some people might not be able to tell this because they might not have seen you in action, or they may not have seen you coach, they might not know you. But I'm like, man, I can tell he got his imprint on it, because your players, they seem confident, but not confident from an arrogant standpoint, but confident from a standpoint like, we ready to go to war. And I know that's you. You know what I'm saying? So speak a little about this year. Undefeated. What would you contribute to being undefeated? I mean, that's not a light thing. First year undefeated. I don't even know how many first year coaches been undefeated to this point. And still a lot of season left, of course.
Right. Well, I think, number one, I want to definitely give, take my hat out to our kids. We got a really good group of kids. They're fun to be around. We allow our kids to really be our kids. Where a lot of coaches, don't interact the way that we interact with our kids. My kids come in my office, we sit down, we chop it up. We have a relationship where they respect who I am, not because of my position, because of the relationship that I built with them. And so I think that has been very important for me as a head coach, and also all of my coaches who've done that. And then my coaches have done an unbelievable job of putting these guys in positions to be successful. And when you just have a will, and you preach the will of winning and the will of preparation, they see the level of preparation that goes into our game plans. And then, for me, is all about making all of that stuff that we as coaches know, making that easy for our kids, accessible for our kids to understand and digest, so we can get what we need out of them on a Friday night. I think all of those things have gone into it, and just telling them that, like, they know what the standard is. Anything less than the standard is unacceptable. And so far this year, man, we played some really good teams. Lucas Lovejoy, 5 Division I receivers.
That was a big win, yeah.
It wasn't an easy feat, preparing for those guys, but we found a way to make it easy for our kids, and we challenged our kids, and they were unbelievable in that game. The Euless Trinity, they're not, where they want to be right now in their program. You're still playing the tradition of that program, even in a down year. And I had to tell my kids, like, this isn't your, although it's not the traditional Trinity, who's probably 5-0, 4-1 at this point in time. You look at the schedule that they played. They've played some people, and so, convincing your kids that, yeah, they may be 0-5, but they also have the potential to come in here and whoop your butt if we don't show up and be who we are. And that's what I've been, pressing upon them. You have shown.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Coach. Go ahead.
You have shown people who you are. When you show people who you are and what you're capable of, now they expect that from you week in and week out. So we have to be a version of that, a better version of that this week than we were last week.
Yeah, that's a good point. Speaking of preparation, Coach, what does that mean for an outsider? Let's say a guy that want to get in coaching, he's in college. What does preparation mean? What is the genesis of that? Like, what's preparation? Is that just film watching? Is that weightlifting? What does that particularly mean?
Man, it's everything, right? Operations are really big for us. Once we lay out the operations, you need to have SOPs for everything, right? Once you have standard operating procedures, now, you plug and play those, right? And so we start, on a weekend, it's the big picture in mind. It's begin with the end in mind. It's who we're playing, all right?
Okay.
So we're going to pop up who we're playing, and then we're going to watch their film. We're going to do all the input and data, and figure out, what they are, who they are, essentially from a schematical standpoint. Against that, we're going to press up what we do versus that, what tweaks we need to make based on what they're doing. What you see this week doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see it, next week. It's our answers within our tool bag of what we do on both sides of the ball. So as we're playing this team, we may say we need to run, this coverage, run these stunts versus this team. And we don't need, these tools this week. So we'll put those tools to the side. We won't practice them as much during the week. We'll practice the ones that we need, because you never know in that tool bag. You might have a job where you want to go cut down a tree, but that don't necessarily mean that you might not need a hammer for something else. You know what I mean? And so that week we may not utilize the hammer as much, but we keep that hammer in the tool bag just in case in the game we say, okay, we need the hammer. We got it. And so we're just figuring out ways of taking what we do and what we need for that week, and we impress that on our kids more that week as we're teaching to the test of what we've seen on film. And then, of course, you got everything that goes into with the, the meetings and the weightlifting and, special teams. All of those things go into your entire week. So when I tell you, like, we as coaches, we work. You
Mm-hmm.
know, this time, I mean, we're 80, 90 hours a week, and we're Monday through Sunday.
48 minutes in. Just go. Just a few minutes longer. I don't want to take too much coach time, but we're just talking, getting it under the hood a little bit. Coach, what is? And I like to ask these just questions. They seem simple, but I just love to know because a lot of people don't know. What is that practice schedule for you guys? Or is it how many days a week are you practicing? How many? The time frame. What's a little bit about that? And then talk to me about that weight training. I'm always fascinated with the strength and conditioning of a program, as far as the lifting and stuff like that. Was that a point of emphasis for you when you got this job?
So just as far as like the practice schedule standpoint goes, I mean, Monday, we call it mental Mondays. So from a weekend game plan, kind of what I just talked about on Mondays, it's the introduction of the game plan. We'll get our kids in during the period. We're going to give them the game plan. We're going to throw up the film. We're going to show them their opponent, all of those things, on a Monday. And then we're going to lift as well on Monday. We come to school after practice, and now it's, teaching them. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it, as we stated in the period. So Mondays are mental Mondays. Tuesdays for us, we call it Tempo Tuesday. All right, now everything is ramped up. Game plan is on. We're throwing it at you. We're trying to see what you have digest, what you can do versus, what we've shown you or what the team or our opponent has shown us. So we have, everything's fast paced. And then there are some built-in periods that I'll just interrupt practice where it's good on good. So our ones versus our ones, our twos versus our twos. So we can keep that competitive balance. On Wednesday, we call it Worry-Free Wednesday or Gospel Wednesdays, because that's when we pop on our gospel playlist. We have 7 o'clock in the morning. We go in the morning on Wednesdays. We get our kids up. Hour practice for us on Wednesdays. And then we also lift weights during the period. Actually on Wednesdays now we do all our special teams during the period on Wednesdays, and we lift after school. And then Thursdays is kind of our kick the field. Or actually, we changed that too. So our Thursdays we have kind of a walkthrough of the game plan, just to shore up anything that needs to be changed. And then on Fridays we have in our period we have what we call ghost game. So it's a script, about 30 things, and we just run through that script as if it was a game, making sure that we are good in all areas and all situations that could possibly arise, from our 2-minute to fast, to our NASCAR, which is our, no huddle up tempo, to, taking the knee, taking the safety, running special teams on and off the field, just things like that. So for us, as far as the strength and conditioning aspect, we came in with a group that had a really good foundation as far as strength is concerned. Like our kids, they did a really good job in the weight room. Kids were strong, kids are physical. So we didn't have to necessarily come in and say, oh, we got to get stronger. So that helped with this group, knowing that we had a base, and now we were able to put our spin and what we believe and what we do in the weight room, to life. We're really big with powerlifting. And so once the season is over, we're going to hit powerlifting really, really hard. Powerlifting is huge for us, and track is huge for us. So everybody in our program will powerlift, and everybody in our program will run track.
Hey, I'm glad you said that, because I didn't even think about that. Now, is that something? Now, I know, of course, Cedar Hill, that's there. Was that something that you brought over, or did they already have that?
So powerlifting, they didn't powerlift, last year. And so that was something that, it's a huge correlation. The year that North Crowley won the state championship, they also won state powerlifting. And a lot of those years, even at Cedar Hill, when they won, state championships, they had multiple state powerlifters. So it's a correlation between those two, definitely. And then also the aspect of, track. Track has been really, really big in the track program last year at North Crowley. The previous year, when I was at Cedar Hill, my last year, they were at the state tournament, in the sprint relay. I believe that this year we'll be back there. We got some guys that can roll. And so I'm pushing, we didn't have a lot of guys when I first got there out in track. This year, we're going to look like an army when we come to track meets. everybody, is going to be out there doing something in track.
Coach, like I said, a few minutes more. I don't want to take too much of your time. Talk a little bit about your leaders on the team. I know the one young man is heavily recruited you have, but talk a little about the leaders of your team. What have you seen from them that has kind of taken the team to another level?
The most important pressure is peer pressure. At some point in time, you feel as a coach that your kids begin to hear your message, and not that it is stale or falls on deaf ears. Sometimes they need to be reaffirmed in what you're saying and your message through other people. So I consistently bring in people in our community. I've had the mayor out to speak to our kids. I've had guys off the 2003 state team come talk to our kids. I have a character coach who is Pastor Joseph. He comes and he speaks to our kids for the most part on a weekly basis. So our kids hear multiple voices and multiple people who are successful and who have, attachments to our community. So I believe all those things are important. With our kids, again, stating, about peer pressure being the most important pressure. Our leaders on our team, are guys that have been, in the fire. So that this senior class, there are a couple of guys, Kai Turrentine, Samaje Burrell, who's the guy you're referring to, who's going to University of Texas on our defense. Those guys for us are guys that, lead our defense. And then you have on our offensive side of the ball, I have Kamorian Pimpton, my 6'6" tight end, who's committed to Vanderbilt, who's now just getting, he just got offered this week by several different D1 schools.
What class is he, Coach? 2023 senior?
Yeah, he's a senior.
Wow.
So he transferred back to North Crowley. He was at Brewer. He came back. He lives right around the corner from my school. Grew up in the community. So he's back, home. And he's, just a great kid. He's what you want as a leader. Another guy that came back with him is Robert Orr. Robert Orr plays O-line, D-line for us. He's a 700-pound squatter. Like, kids, just unbelievably powerful. But, like, when he speaks, our kids listen. And so their impact on the team is big, because a lot of times, and I tell this to these kids. So for us, identifying not who you as a coach want to be the leader, but who the kids actually listen to as the leader. And as you figure out who the kids listen to, who has the pull and who can influence and move your kids, and you as a coach, you need to spend time with them and you need to pour into them, because they have that power and that influence. A lot of times what we do as coaches is we go, oh, who's going to be the leader? Oh, this kid's going to be the leader, this kid. And you have to teach leadership characteristics, because it's not natural. With a lot of guys that have those leadership capabilities are also the guys that a lot of time make plays for you in the game. They're the guys that show up. And sometimes those guys are intrinsically motivated. Sometimes those guys are introverts. They're introverts. And they aren't the ones that are rah, 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 or yell. So how do you get those guys to lead, and be able to speak when they need to speak, even though it's getting them out of their comfort zone? And so one of them, for instance, like Samaje, I tell them all the time, to whom much is given, much is required. And when you're talented and you're blessed and you're gifted, just automatically people assume that, that guy is the Ray Lewis, if you will. That's what comes to mind. And he speaks, but he doesn't speak a whole bunch. But when he does speak, it's something. And so just recently, just out of the blue, this week he's texting his linebacker group, hey, when the quarterback does this, they're doing that. When they do this, they're doing that. He's starting to send little nuggets to his group and starting to take ownership of that. You see guys coming in, watching more film. It's just you start to see that now things are a lot more important because of what's at stake. And that's what you want to see as a coach when it comes to leadership. Your team will rise and fall on the level of leadership. It will rise and fall on the level of leadership. If your leadership is at a 3, you can never rise to a 4. You can only rise to a 1, 2, or 3. If your leadership is at a 9, you can rise all the way up to that 9. So wherever that leadership is on that spectrum, you can only rise up to that point. You can never go beyond it. And so leadership rises and falls. I mean, it's going to rise and fall upon your leadership. And so I think that's really important for us. And so I'll say this as well, because I thought this was this ties into that. And we had this conversation about week 2. I had this conversation with my coaches on a Sunday meeting. I said, all right, what's more important, a player-led team or a coach-led team? Most people will say a player-led team.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with that. If you have a team where you just got a great group of kids and they lead, you're blessed and you're fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Coach-led team means that it's on the onus is on the coaches. For us, I feel like this team that we have right now is a coach-led team, and I don't think anything is wrong with that. And I say this because I've watched our kids and I know what our kids need.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if it's a player-led team or a coach-led team. Only thing that matters is that the need is being met. Doesn't matter where it comes from. And so for us, it's the energy, the juice, and the passion. All we do as coaches is we start the spark. If we spark it with our kids, they take over.
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't spark it, then we're leaving everything else to chance. And so you have to know that about your team. What do they need? How do I know that? When I first got there, we put on our schemes. We're on 7-on-7. We're playing competitive 7-on-7.
Yeah.
One game, we look like, we're going to go win a state championship. And then we'll play somebody the next game and you're like, what the heck is that? You watch your kids' demeanor and all of that. And you start to notice things about your teams. And then you start to notice it when you're doing things in situations and practice. And then you devise a plan. And so I told my coaches, listen, we know what our deficiencies are. And if you know and you've identified what they are, then you also can do something about it. So what's our proactive approach? This is what we have to do for our kids. When we do this for our kids, it's a wrap. I don't care what it is. It's a wrap. So we know how to attack those problems with our kids when they arise. That's all coaches. Players, player-led team, it's not that way. And so to answer that question in a long roundabout way, it doesn't matter who leads the team. What matters is that the void is being met by either players or coaches.
Coach, man, I'm trying to wind this thing down, but the more you talk, the more you make me think of different stuff. I got I got a couple more questions, but 2 more within the context of what you're saying. And it's going to sound funny, Coach. Does it matter what position that leadership comes through? Meaning, does it matter if it's a linebacker, quarterback, receiver? Does it matter, or long as you have that player that can be that leader? Does the position matter at all?
No, the position doesn't matter. I think for most people, just traditionally speaking, you want, your linebacker, on defense is the quarterback of the defense. And then, of course, you have your quarterback. Those are the 2 main positions that most people think about when it comes to leadership. But I've been on teams when it's been a secondary kid. I've been on teams when it's been a defensive line, an O-line. None of that matters. And it goes back to what I said earlier. It's about, as coaches, knowing who the kids are, that when they open their mouth, all the kids do this. They look.
So, yeah.
Those are the kids that you better identify, because I can go and say, all right, we're going, our leader on the defense is going to be this kid. All right. I can say that, and I can spend time with that kid, pouring into that kid, and saying, hey, you're going to be the leader. And that may not be something that he may feel comfortable with or want to take on. And so why, as a coach, make those decisions when you have influencers on your team? You better know who your influencers are, And you better make sure that you corral your influencers and you pour into them so that they're saying the right things. And you also got to get them to understand, like, you have this quality, you have this power.
Mm-hmm.
Use it the right way. And I'm constantly having those battles. When one of my influencers are saying the wrong things, the first thing I do is I go to them and I say, hey, listen, that's not the way that you handle that situation. Maybe what you said was right, but the way you said it was wrong. Understand that when you say stuff, it has power. So let's make sure we say it in this context. So now we were all on the same page, because we talk about this. If it's a situation, you miss a play or flush it. We're going to flush it. We have a flush it mentality. I don't care what it is. We score a touchdown, we drop a pass, we blow an assignment, we make a great play. It's the next play. Flush it. That play no longer matters. And when we approach it that way, you know, I don't want our kids to be out there fussing, arguing with each other, flushing it. So that guy that's that influencer, it's a difference between saying, hey, let's pick it up, let's attack the situation, versus attacking that kid. And now it's playing, and he worried about what he said to him, right? So you got to pour into those influencers.
And then I want to pivot, man. It's back and forth, but this is good stuff. That year in Cedar Hill, where y'all went to state, I feel like that was just 2 years ago, maybe 3. I don't know.
2020.
Yeah, 2020. As you talking, you made a very interesting point, and I want to know, Coach, was that because I thought y'all defense, y'all had K-Saw, and K-Saw, you know, he bailed you guys out sometimes, but I thought the defense was very good. The secondary was that defense player led or coaching led?
That defense was player led.
Okay.
There was some dudes on that defense.
Yeah, they were smart too, boy.
And they grew up in the system. I think that year, those group of seniors were our first. No, they were in our system for 3 years. All right. Okay. That group of seniors were an unbelievable group, man. They were close-knit. They were tight. They believed in the process. They believed in what we were doing. That the linebacker group was really, really good that year. Our secondary was phenomenal that year. D-line was really, really good with guys that had a lot of playing experience. So we had a really, really good defense, man. State championship quality defense that year. Here is what I've come to understand, and this is for me and a lot of guys that I've talked to. The year prior to that, we struggled a lot before we got K-Saw. We struggled a lot offensively to be as consistent as we wanted to be. I say we struggled a lot. We just weren't as consistent as we wanted to be. And when we got him, that guy changed everything. He changed everything. And so I'm a firm believer that in this sport right now, if you don't have that guy, you can be good, but you won't get to where you need to be. And so the development of your quarterback, for me and my program going forward, is one of the most important factors, because the skill may change, the line may change, but if you got a guy that can keep you in the game, no matter what, you're going to have an opportunity to win. And so that changed my outlook. We're going to always have a quarterback. I'll never go into the season not knowing who my quarterback is. You know, and so that is also has a lot to do with development. Like, you have to develop those guys. You got to identify those guys. You got to develop them, and you got to have them ready to play when the moment comes.
Man, I love that, Coach, because I mean, I think that's something that a lot of people know. I mean, it should be common sense. You got to have a decent quarterback. I mean, I guess some programs just don't have it. But I remember when you guys got K-Saw, I think he came over there as a sophomore, and I was like, man, who is this guy? He can roll out and throw the ball 60 yards on the run. I'm like, who is this kid? And because I was always watching Cedar Hill before that, and in the one area I was kind of frustrated. I'm like, why did Big 6A, the quarterback position wasn't there? 1 year they had y'all had a really little short quarterback, and I was like, man, come on, why does City Hill not have a good quarterback? And then y'all got K-Saw, and then he took you guys to another level. So that quarterback is needed. Let me ask you this, and I wasn't even going here until you just said it. I mean, a guy like K-Saw don't come around a lot, though, Coach.
You don't have to have a guy like K-Salt, right?
Okay.
You have to have a guy, whatever your scheme is your scheme.
Okay.
You have to have a guy, for me, that's not afraid of the moment.
Okay.
Not afraid of the moment. A guy that the team will believe in, will rally behind. And he has to have the IQ and the skill set to play the position.
Yeah.
My quarterback that I have right now is a sophomore. He started 3 games as a freshman on varsity.
Okay.
He's special.
Okay.
He's a sophomore, and our offense right now is top 5 in the Metroplex in 6A. He can throw the ball, get the ball to wherever he needs to. He has athleticism. He can run the ball if he needs to. And he's learning to command the offense with ease. And the guys that are in that huddle, when they look at him, they don't look at him as a sophomore. They look at him and they see the team leader of that offense, and he's a sophomore, right?
Coach, let me stop you. Coach, let me stop you. Okay, go ahead. No, I'll ask later. Go ahead.
Okay. He's a sophomore. But again, it goes back to his ability to play the position. He has a skill set to play the position. We're building him up from a mental standpoint of what our scheme entails for us to play the position. And now, once he starts to learn those things, then we can pour a lot more into him about the leadership characteristics of the position, of what it means to be a quarterback, And so he has a long way to go in a lot of areas, but when you look at him and you see the potential, he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the state when he's a senior. He's going to be top 10 in the state easy, hands down, because he can do it all. Arm talent is there, the IQ is there, the athleticism is there, and then he's just an infectious kid. Our kids love him.
So right now with him, y'all are kind of pumping him up, getting him ready for the mental aspect of it right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. Man, this is, man, I'll tell you, so many different places I'm going when you just talk, my mind goes different places. Coach, so we talk about the quarterback is needed. But I think about, I remember the game y'all played against Katy. That was their championship game. I think about North Shore versus Duncanville. It's fascinating how, especially North Shore, they always have a good quarterback. It was Davis a couple years ago, and that's the young man that's, I think, a 2024 kid.
Yeah, he
got hurt
too. He got hurt, and he's out for the season now. But go ahead.
Yes. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, just last week.
Oh wow! But coach, this is what I'm wondering. With those teams like that, Katy and the ones I named, Alston Westlake, which they throw the ball more. That spread them out, and then they had Klubnik. Is it the quarterback that he can make the good throws? He's a smart, he can make the good throws at the right time, or is it offensive line? Like, what exactly is it? Because I know we say quarterback a lot, and I definitely agree with that. But it also seems like it's some level of offensive line play. And the only reason I say that because I look at a Duncanville, and we just talking here, they don't throw the ball a lot, but they're able to get to the state. They haven't won it yet, granted, but they're able to get there. So what is that connection? Is it you need to have that quarterback versus if you have a dominant O-line and run game, you can get there? Or defense,
If I had to choose between a dominant offensive line and a dominant quarterback, I would take a dominant quarterback. I would take a dominant quarterback. It's high school football. There are going to be certain games in high school football that talent for talent, you need to be able to match if you're going to go win it all. I believe offensive line is really important. That's the most, to me, that's the one group that has to be the most cohesive because they all work together. And so the time that you spend with your offensive line is very important. So you could take an average skill set offensive line. If your scheme permits it, you can make them really good as a unit because you have 5 of them. I can do some things, if, we may not be able to line up and just single block anybody, but dang it, we can get up there and we can double team you. There are things that you can do schematically to help a bad offensive line. There's nothing that you can do schematically to help a bad quarterback.
Real talk.
When you can do some things, but I think they're both important, but the question is, when you look at it, you watch the 6A, you watch the 5A state championship game. You can go to lower levels. Lower levels are a little bit different because the style of football is more of, old school mentality where it's or something like you see with Katy. But you look at upper echelon 5A, 6A, Lake Travis, Westlake, South Lake. You name just those three off the top of my head. They always have a quarterback. They're not into a season going up. They don't have a quarterback. The teams that are more so inconsistent, it might be a year they have a quarterback, they surface. The year they don't have a quarterback, they're still good. They make it 3 rounds deep, but the quarterback play is what's most important, because when you get to the state game, you're going to have that guy. Duncanville's quarterbacks, have been, really good for their scheme. Like JJ was a transcendent player. You can't, a JJ. You look at, the quarterbacks that they've had, they've been really good scheme guys. But how many of those guys that they had really since then have been, high-level college football quarterbacks? Like for me, not saying that what they're doing is wrong, because I don't believe that at all. They've been to 3 state championships back to back to back. I hope that one day I'm fortunate to get there. Their quarterback play in those games haven't been up to that level. And so when you think about it, they played North Shore. In that game, talent for talent, they're checking the box. Checking the box, talent for talent. Quarterback play has been, the difference. Yeah. Even with a young kid when they were there last year, like the young kid made plays. Like
he did big plays.
When the talent is level, from you check it all the way down up front, you can check the box. Both of them are going to be good in the trenches. Wide receivers, check the box. Running back, check the box. Secondary, check the box. All those things are going to be different. Are going to be the same. Quarterback play. Who has the edge? That's what I always look for. And so until you can get to that point to where you have in those games the edge with that trigger guy, K-Salt, I'm telling you right now, from a coaching standpoint and from a player standpoint, I didn't care who we played, because that guy. And we won the Rockwall Heath game, which was the 4th round of playoffs, overtime.
Yeah, I was at that one. Yeah.
He came to the sideline. It's like, Coach, don't worry about it. I got y'all. And I said, you're right. I knew we were going to win that game. I got y'all, Coach. You're right. Yeah. That guy, when you got that guy, he is the eraser and he's the difference maker. You could have the one for him, but the one for him can't stop him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm so big with quarterback play. As a defensive guy, I gotta have a quarterback. We're gonna always have a quarterback.
Coach, but something fascinating. I agree with you. I think quarterback is more important than O-line, especially all things being equal. Because you got a quarterback, he can bail you out, man. I done seen a quarterback that ran the ball about 300 yards just because he was a great athlete and they couldn't stop him. Coach, I've noticed like Highland Park, they've had a run of good quarterbacks as far as the high school level. I say that. South Lake, since I know they had to get from Kenny Hill to the Raleigh Downs, they've had a linear quarterbacks. It seemed like why are they able to stack these quarterbacks like that versus some teams? It's like they may have a good quarterback these 3 years and then they down 2 years. They may have a good quarterback this 1 year, then they down 1 year. Like, why does they seem like they can stack a quarterback versus this team where they inconsistent at the position? Is there any reason?
Yeah, there. A lot of those places that you name, when you look at it just financially, they have all the resources, right? These are suburban areas. And they're well affluent areas. And so whether or not it's a kid that grew up in that area, I'll give you another one that I didn't mention, a Denton Geyer.
Yeah, how can I forget them? Yeah.
Whether it's a kid that, grew up, being, a Wildcat, if it's Denton, or you look at Allen all those years, those places become destination spots because people are willing to move their kid. And put their kid in that system going, he could be the next quarterback at one of those schools, right? And I think that's where probably, if anything, like a lot of those schools that have kind of the edge on some of, our schools, is that the facility wise, they can check all the boxes.
Okay.
And so when I talk about resources, we're talking about money. So they
Yeah.
got indoor, right? They
Yeah,
got
they do.
new state of the art weight room. They got unbelievable, meeting rooms, locker room. They check all these boxes. So from a perception standpoint, just because you can spend more money, people think that means more. And most parents want their kids to be a part of that, so they'll pick up their family and they'll move them to be in that situation. Or
Okay.
they do a really good job in those middle schools of identifying, those guys that are quarterbacks. And in the off season, that seventh grader, that eighth grader comes up to the high school, and whenever they're doing their quarterback training, he's getting quarterback training with their quarterback coach.
I was just about to say that. How much do quarterback training play into it? Okay, because a
Yeah.
lot of, well, I don't know how true this is, but I've kind of seen it. Those affluent areas, those kids also get a lot of training. They can afford a lot of quarterback training. Man, that's very good. Hour and 20 minutes in, so I'm gonna get ready to wind down, coach, because I'm ready to post this out on Twitter, man. Because you done dropped so many nuggets. Um, I guess we'll wrap it up in these two ways. Now, seeing you cooking, you're known for cooking, because you're gonna get on that grill. Talk a little bit about the why behind that. I know it's just not food; it got to be some camaraderie, team building aspect in there. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it's something that we started when I got to Cedar Hill. Um, where on Wednesdays we would have like these video sessions after practice, and what the kids would do is that they would bring like a couple of dollars and they would order pizza, and sit down and watch film. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we got there, I was talking to Coach Harris. I was like, listen, man, like, why don't we all pitch in? Coaches don't have our kids pitch in any money, and let's just get something.
Mm-hmm.
I got a flat top, I got a smoker. We just make it happen. So
Yeah.
it kind of started there. And what that did for us coming in at Cedar Hill was almost the missing link that connects
Mm.
us to the players. And at Cedar Hill, 75% of the school is African American. And
Mm-hmm.
just with our culture, it's something about sitting down, having a meal with people that you care about, you love. It connects us. That's
Yep.
one of the ways that we as a people, we connect. And so when we did that, I began to see our kids kind of attached to us more, because it became something that we were doing. And we just did it only on defense, right?
Okay.
And so like on
I didn't know that.
yeah, we just started doing it on defense. So it started out a defensive thing. And then it got to a point to where like the offense was like, hey, coach, what's up, what up?
Yeah, I'm about to say, coach. No, I'm surprised y'all just did it on defense. I know the offense, like, come on, man, they eating steaks and stuff. We ain't.
Yeah, and so it pushed over into a team deal, right? And so now it was the team, and it just brought us together. And so being at North Crowley now, I've cooked several times with the guys. When I first got there, like yesterday, I made 4 briskets. I was up all night, cooking for the kids. And just
Wow.
when I come in with some food, like last Friday, we didn't have school. And so I brought the kids up. We had a light lift in the morning, and I was out cooking breakfast. And for me personally, cooking is my love language. Like,
Yeah, it feel good to do that. Yep.
love to cook.
Yep.
I love to give. That's one of the ways that I show you that I care about you and I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, doing that for our kids, man, it just changes everything. And then all of our kids are sitting down and we're eating and we're talking and we're fellowshipping, and they don't realize it. We're just growing closer and closer and closer.
Yeah.
And those are the investments that you have to make with your team. Those are things that I can say, like, this is what we're doing. Ain't nobody else doing this. We love you. We ask all these things out of you. We gonna grind for you. We're not just gonna say we love you. We're gonna show you we love you. And
Mm-hmm.
it just strengthens our bond with our kids.
Mm-hmm. Coach, speak to where is Crowley? What area is that in North Texas? Then speak to some of the teams y'all play, and then we'll wrap it up right now. I think this has been a pretty good episode.
Okay. Yeah, well, Crowley, or South. We're kind of in between South Fort Worth and Burleson. We're kind of smacked right in between both of those areas. Out to our west, about 20 minutes west of us is Aledo. Fort Worth to the north, Burleson to the south, Everman is to our west. So we're kind of in that area, which I love. I tell people this all the time, just being there now and seeing what we've built in such a short amount of time, it's crazy. It's so much talent over there. And here's the difference, what I've noticed. The talent where I am is no different than the talent that you see at Cedar Hill, Duncanville, DeSoto,
I believe it.
Lancaster. It's the same. The only difference is that those kids over on Cedar Hill, DeSoto side, Duncanville, all those kids stay for the most part within a 5 to 7 mile radius of that area in the southern sector. Whereas over here, traditionally, the kids, if they leave, they're gone. They're going out to Brewer, they're going out to Aledo, they're going out to Everman, they're going to Arlington. The kids leave.
Wow.
And so the first thing that I did, and I know it's building off of what Alan did. Alan did a really good job of keeping the kids at home. I got, several people that I've talked to in the community, kids are coming. And my kids are coming. Kids are coming because of what we're doing. They're seeing what we're doing. And I tell people this, you can mark it down, you heard it here. In 3 years, and I'm saying it, I'm speaking it into existence.
Yep.
We're going to be what Duncanville is on our side of the Metroplex.
I believe it.
We're going to be the destination spot. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are going to look up and want to be a part of what we got going, not just because of what we do on the football field. I believe because of all the other things that we offer to our kids and how we're trying to bring our kids up, because there really is nobody else over there to compete with. Like, we kind of have our own little spot over there. And so with that, if we just keep doing what we're doing and we keep setting the foundation, I'm not looking over here trying to say, hey, you come over here, you come over here. That's going to speak for itself. People are going to want to be a part of what we have going because of who we are and how we love our kids and what we're doing for our kids. It's much bigger than X's and O's, because if it was just that, wins and losses, we're failing our kids. We're preparing our kids for something that's much bigger. And so that's what I'm excited about. We have the indoor facility.
I was about to say that.
We have the $56 million stadium. We're hoping to get a brand new, weight room, field house, classroom. Like, we're all brand new. We're hoping to get that within the next couple of years. And so there's a lot of things that's groundbreaking right now in Crowley, Texas, that a lot of people don't know about. And I'll say this, there is so much growth. There's probably five new neighborhoods that are popping up right around my school.
I believe it.
Growth is happening at a rapid pace. So when I mentioned to you earlier, being at the right place at the right time, I'm here at the right time. I'm here seeing the fruits of the seeds that have been planted. I didn't plant the seed. I didn't water the seed. I'm seeing it sprout, and I'm about to see the fruit. And so this is the time, for such a time as this. This is when God is there for this moment, and so I'm grateful and excited to be here.
When you didn't get that Skyline job, Coach, I text you, I think, and I said, or maybe called, I don't remember. I said it's gonna be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I said that. I don't know why I said that, but it ended up being true. And then when I see y'all getting that new stadium, I say, man, new coach, new stadium. I mean, you got a team on the south side that we talking about that don't got an indoor. You know what I'm saying? So, or a new stadium for that matter. So that's a blessing, man. Who are some of the teams in y'all district, Coach?
So Euless Trinity, that's the household name. We play next week at our stadium. We play Fort Worth Boswell. They are 5-0. We're 5-0. They have a quarterback who's really good, 6'4". Kid can run. He's going to Texas A&M to play baseball, but he got a cannon. He can throw that thing all over the field. So they do a really good job over there. Pascal's in our district. We played them a couple of weeks ago. Chisholm Trail, LB Bell is in our district as well, and Weatherford, and then of course our crosstown rival in Crowley. They moved up to 6A, and so they're in our district. So we have a really good district. It's different from where I came from, being in the District of Doom and having Cedar Hill glasses, to being in my current district and understanding the landscape of that district. But like I said, it's been awesome. It's been a blessing, and man, I'm excited about the next half of the season. Being where we are right now.
Hour and 29 minutes in. Coach, I'm gonna let you go, man. It's been a great one. I'm gonna post little snippets on here. Probably now, man. Probably flood Twitter, and then this episode will be out in a couple of weeks. I got quite a bit back though. But hey, man, thank you for your time, Coach. Hey, Coach, let me stop this, man. Let me stop and say this. How was that when y'all went over there to do that interview at I want to say, what was that? Valley Sports, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How was that? Talk a little bit about that.
Oh man, so it's crazy. So Aaron Hardingen, who was a sports reporter for Bally's back in the day, I started out coaching. I was at West Texas A&M University.
Okay, Aaron, I do remember you told me.
Aaron was a softball player at the time that I was coaching there, and so to see her, she was a heck of a baseball player, softball player. She's in the Hall of Fame over at West Texas A&M. And to see her from where she was then and to see her now just blossom and grow into her profession was cool. So whenever they called me, and so what they did was they texted me before, a couple of days before the Lovejoy game, and then, same day text Coach Ross, hey, this week, you happen to win the game, we'd like for you to come to the studio. We'll text you, some information, and time and all of that stuff. And so, getting that text was pretty cool, knowing that we were on the right track. Nobody at that point thought we were going to beat Lovejoy. Lovejoy was ranked number 3 in the state.
Yeah, that was big.
And so we go to that game. Of course, we win the game, and I get the text, and Erin, she texted me, and she was fired up and excited. And so to go into the studio, I took Kamari and the tight end with me, and to just go through that process was really cool. But also for me and her, we got an opportunity to talk about 15 years ago, where we were back then and where we are now. So that was pretty cool. So we have that connection being alumni.
Yeah, man, and that's Coach, that's kind of rare, man. The first year to get this publicity, and I like it. I think you deserve it, but that's rare, Coach, man. So I just want to put that in there because I when I seen it, I was like, man, I know some of that comes with winning. With winning comes a lot of stuff, but that's a part of it in a good way. All right, Coach, I think I'm officially out of questions. Or we'll end it. I probably ain't out of questions, but we'll end it. Hour 30 minutes in. Coach, appreciate it, man. Keep winning and keep leading those young men.
Absolutely, man. You just let me know when you want to come out, man. We'll get you taken care of.
I will.
Come. Make sure when you come, make sure you come to our new stadium. You can come to a game, new stadium. If you can, next week it's going to be awesome. 5-0 atmosphere is going to be crazy. It's going to be a packed stadium, and nobody does it like us. We're going to have a live DJ the whole game. And so. Come on,
Coach, y'all got any Thursday, Saturday games coming up, or all Friday here on out?
We did have one Thursday, but they moved it, which is the last game of the season. We had Crowley. It was originally on the Thursday, but my superintendent decided he wanted to move it into a Friday night, and so whatever he says goes. Shout out to Dr. McFarland, our superintendent. Got amazing administration.
I was about to say that because we know that play a part in building the program too.
And it's not just football, So at our new stadium, we have 180 acres of land. We only developed 90. The next phase is they're going to put, a par 3 golf course with a driving range for our golf students, possibly a baseball and softball complex. And, we didn't put a track in our new stadium, so there's even a chance that we could possibly have a track out there. So this vision of Crowley right now, it's about excellence, not across the Metroplex, but across the state of Texas, and the vision that our superintendent and our school board members have. It's going to take all athletics to the next level. And so when you look at us on that side of the Metroplex, there's nobody that's going to be competing with us and what we're willing to do for our kids, both academically and also on the athletic arena. So I'm excited, man, about just everything. I told them that golf course goes up, I got my clubs in my truck.
I know, Coach. What's my boy Adam Molina? I know he play a little golf, so I know that's funny. That's funny. I'm gonna try to get out there, Coach. I've been doing some filming with the radio crew over at North Forney, so I've been kind of doing with them. But man, even if it ain't a game, I just want to come out there and see you guys and just be around you guys, man. So I don't know when, but I'm gonna say I'm gonna come, man.
Absolutely, man. Well, the door is always open. Red carpets roll out. I appreciate what you're doing, the platform that you got, man. And one of these days, it might be a couple of years from now, I'll be having the same conversation that I had with Aaron in the studio, and hopefully I'm in your studio.
Nah, for real. Coach, I'm for the flood Twitter with this, man. Just little snippets of it. And like I said, it'll be out in a couple of weeks, man. Hey, keep grinding. Oh, y'all coaches in the office tomorrow?
No, we're off, man. We did a really good job with our preparation. And it's one of the things, again, you keep segueing me. So it's one of those things as an assistant coach and as, a coordinator, when these situations pop up and, you go, man, what would you do? And so we didn't work last weekend. We played, we watched the film in the period with our kids. I told my coaches, if we get all of our work done throughout the week, there's no need for us to be there on the weekend. We need to detach and unplug.
Yeah.
We've done that, but we've also got all of our preparation ready. Game plan is in play. We've put on part of the game plan this week throughout practice. So we really get 2 weeks of preparation. So we're ready to go. Anything that we see we don't like, we can make adjustments this week. So I'm feeling really good with where we are right now. Coach,
what do you? And I keep trying to wind down, but as you talk, it just made me go places. How do you spend your time when you're not connected to ball? Like, I know you got your family, obviously, but any particular things you're thinking about, reading, studying, or just in general? Just what are you doing when you're not connected to ball or school?
I just gotta let my hair down. Like when I get done with here, I got some ribs I'm about to throw on. So I'm cooking, or me and my wife, man, we were always going somewhere. We're doing something, so spending time with my wife. Probably don't spend enough time with her. I'm audiobook guy, so I'll pop on the audiobook, or something when I'm driving in to work, or just trying to figure out, I'm detached from football, but I'm looking for little nuggets to use for football. So this is just a moment. Like when I say like detach and recharge our batteries, it's not just being just totally entrenched in what we do. But just kind of enjoying, the time and our family, and then I'm gonna go play some golf, So
okay, so you like to play a little golf? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm hooked, man.
I heard golf really addicting, Coach.
It is, man. It's the one sport that I can say you play. It's like in basketball, you can play a game of basketball and you could be bad that day.
Yeah.
But if you hit that one shot, that one shot you hit, you go, it's like, man, if I could just do that all the time. Like you just get off that one shot. I leave the golf course is one shot. That's like, man, that's PGA right there. That's stuff right there. You're terrible the whole day, but that one shot you hit. And so I just like to be active, I like to fish. I don't get a chance to fish as much up here as I would like to. Outdoors guy. So I got a lot of things I like to do.
There's probably some good fishing spots out in that Fort Worth area, probably.
It is. It's a lot. I stay, like, we moved from.
I was just about to ask you, did y'all move? Because were you in City Hill?
Yeah, we actually lived in DeSoto.
Okay.
My wife works off of Lover's Lane downtown. So we moved over. I stay about 3 miles from Cowboy Stadium, about 3 miles from Lake Arlington. So I'm kind of right off of 30. So it's in between her job and my job. And so, yeah, it's a couple of areas over here I might test out.
Do you encourage the coaches to kind of I know you said with Coach Lynn, he would kind of, give you guys little books and little nuggets like that. Do you kind of encourage them from a intellectual aspect, or you just let them do their thing?
No, we do.
When they
We
okay,
do. I'm telling you, I mean, a lot of things is, it's been beneficial for me because a lot of the things that I've talked to our kids about are things that, I've seen used and work. A lot of it, like our kids in an indirect way, uh, they hear a lot of Coach Lynn in what I say. That's how much respect I have for Coach Lynn. And I know right now, even with what they're going through, they haven't played a cupcake schedule, and they played some really good teams. And at some point in time, who you play, that definitely matters. And you hope that, you sharpen your axe. So at some point in time, you can start cutting and you can be successful. So I know they right now are still in the hunt trying to find their first game. But the things that you learn, you take with you and you use it, right? And what a lot of times as coaches you don't realize is that the things that we're teaching our kids, we often forget that those things apply to us too.
true.
And a lot of times you're reminded of those things whenever you face adversity. Like you're telling your kids to be mentally tough and to be selflessness and to be accountable. But when everything is going well, there's a natural flow to those things in your life. You don't have to think about intentionally being disciplined or being selfless or accountable or mental tough. But when you're hitting the mouth and you're going through kind of what they're going through right now as coaches,
Yeah.
core values that they're preaching to the kids, they have to show up and they have to utilize those as well. And so just being around him and seeing the way that Coach, he's so locked in on the details about the things that most people don't even see. So I try to make sure I have a keen eye in our program, that I'm looking at the areas that most people overlook, sweep the stuff under the bed or just throw everything in the closet. Somebody walks in the room and go, your room is clean. When they look at the program from a program standpoint, what I'm doing is I'm opening the closet. I'm saying, it's like right now, this room is clean. We're 5-0, but let's open up this closet because this right here is broken. And eventually that's going to cost us. Or underneath this bed, like let's get up underneath this bed. Let's get this cleaned up this week. And so a lot of this week has been focused on the things that we need to get better at, that I know when the talent gets closer and the games get more significant, the margin of error becomes that small. And so
That's true.
closet and going underneath that bed and cleaning that up so that when someone comes in and they say, okay, yeah, you're 7-0, you're 8-0, are they a real 7-0 or they're a real 8-0, or are they the beneficiary of just the right time? And I want to be the real deal. I want when people come in and inspect our program, I want them to leave and say they got everything clean. They're not leaving stuff in the closet and underneath the bed.
And man, I keep saying I'm shut this thing down. This phone going low and everything, but I don't know. It just keeps going, so I'm gonna let it flow. I got another question too, Coach. When wins and losses is part of this game. You mentioned City Hill, and it made me think about this. When you're going through that bump in the road, let's say you lost 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row. You have experienced this right now in as the head coach, but just say that does the coach reach out to others, or does he re-examine himself? Does he look at his team? Like, how does that coach handle that in the standpoint of, especially if he ain't used to that? Is it one of the things where it's like, I need to reach out to a friend, a mentor, coach? I need to, evaluate myself. We know it's a part of the game, but what happens when you lose and you're not used to? Like, how do you kind of navigate those waters?
That's a great question, because what's natural in those situations to begin to question everything.
Okay.
One year everything works, and football. The next year you may struggle doing the same thing, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're doing this right, or we're doing it. You question everything. So number one, I think what's important is that whatever it is that you believe in, that you hang your hat on, that you have to always trust that. That has to always kind of be your point of reference. Like things weren't going right. This is what we say we believe in. All right, let's make sure that we're doing this as best as we possibly can. Because if you don't understand that, then you will lose your identity. It's like, you know who you're supposed to be, But when things happen, or you feel like you know who you are, and then when things happen, the circumstances that happen to you, you allow that to change who you are. You know what I'm saying? You can't allow the circumstances to change who you are. You know who you are, and then you have to work through the circumstances as they approach, right? I think you reach out to people. I think you talk to people. I think you always self-reflect. You know, you win, you self-reflect. We won versus Trinity. And I was talking to our coaches, and we were talking about a particular technique that we were playing on defense. We were saying, well, some of the coaches, well, kids didn't do X, Y, Z. I said, hold on. I said, first of all, before we say they didn't do X, Y, Z, we put them in a bad position. Let's look at the game plan. What were we asking them to do? All right, we were asking them to do X, Y, and Z. They did X, Y, and Z, but it put them in a bad position to cover certain areas that we want to cover. So for us, let's start with us first, and let's fix us before we get to that point. And so you got to always, we won the game, but we're still having those conversations that, all right, we gave up 20 points. Why did we give up those 20 points from a defensive standpoint? What could we have done better? Like, we still have to find the negatives, in the positive. What we used to do is we used to do this on defense at Cedar Hill. We call it plays that make a difference. Instead of watching the whole dang game, we would pick out like the plays that make a difference in the game, whether it's a positive play or negative play. And we would watch those first before we would watch a game, and that's something we probably need to get back to for what I was saying earlier, not allowing our kids to get stagnant. Let's show them, let's clip these bad plays. Let's put these let's clip these bad plays. Let's put these bad. Let's talk about this first. Everybody wants to pat you on the back for play 5 when you make the big hit. Or whatever it is. No, let's skip all that. Let's fix this first, and then we can get to all the other stuff, right? So I think you have to make sure that you're reflecting all the time. And you got to believe that what you're doing is going to pay off. You have to, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself trying to change everything. And then if I ever get into a situation where we have to go separate ways at North Crowley, I want to feel like that I did it the way that I believe was best. I don't want to lose a job or an opportunity going, well, I tried all these different things to get it right. No, I thought that this was the right way to do it. And that's what I was, I don't want to say jump on the sword or down on the sword, but to a certain degree, you have to be flexible in what you believe, but you want to just change it and uproot it, if that makes sense. So you have to have that belief that something is just the backbone of this program.
Okay, I got about 5 minutes on this phone. I got to use the restroom, but I still want to ask one more question. Every time I end it and keep going. Do you ever? Does a coach ever look? And you can answer this one quickly, close. I do want to shut it down. Do you ever? As a coach, do you ever look at it and say, okay, I might not have the coaching I thought, or no, let me phrase it different. It could be the coaching, it could be the players internally. Does the coach ever look at it and say, maybe he don't mean it publicly, but do he ever say we're losing because of this, or is it usually like more than one or two things? Because sometimes I wonder, is the team just losing because they don't got enough dogs, or are they losing because of the coaching? Like that side of it.
Man, I always err to coaching first.
Okay.
I'm gonna always take the blame. I always take the blame. I take the blame for my coaches. I take the blame for my players. Whenever we're doing things well, I give the credit to my players. I give the credit to my coaches. Right? When you're going through some of the things in a bad time in the season, when you're not winning, when you're struggling, everybody's pointing fingers at a lot of different areas.
Yep.
You can't fix every single area. You have to figure out whatever it is in that time that you're struggling, and you have to prioritize. Okay, like we have to get this fixed. Like if we don't get this fixed, we ain't gonna win a game. There are some things that might be pressing, but isn't as important or isn't as pressing as something else. So
that's a good point.
As all right, the last 4 games, let's just say we lost the last 4 games, and each one of those games we lost the turnover margin, meaning that we gave the ball away more than we kept it. But the 2 games that we won a turnover margin, right? And so there are a lot of things that were probably wrong in that 4-game losing streak. Why did we turn the ball over? Or we turned over maybe the quarterback. He read the wrong guy. Maybe it was a bad throw. Maybe it was a miscommunication. Like those are important. They have to be fixed. But big picture for kids, let's start here. Let's protect the ball. So every game I tell our kids, the ball is the program, right?
Yeah.
And we want to protect the ball as much as we can, and we want to take it away. So let's start with, we got to fix all of those things. But number 1, keys to victory. I give my kids keys to victory every game. Number 1, this week is turnover battle. Let's win the turnover battle, because when we win the turnover battle, we're 2-0 this season. You see what I'm saying? And so you figure out what are the big things that you got to attack, and then inside of that, you start just kind of going down the list.
Almost 2 hours in, Coach. Let's cut this thing off, because we're going to keep going, Coach. I love this, man. This was really, really good, man. I appreciate it. And we'll do it again, probably outside the season or something like that. This phone is on about 4%, so you ended that just on time. I'm finna share this like crazy, Coach. Man, go enjoy your day, man. Thank you for coming on. I mean that, real talk.
I appreciate you, brother.
Okay, take care.